You know, I really gotta say, cartoon theories, yeah, I was around when the first wave of cartoon theories came out, but I gotta say, there's nothing that can actually prove that a cartoon theory is real, and in my opinion, I find them entertaining, but I also find them bullshit. And to prove this, I'm essentially going to make up 10 fake cartoon theories. And just for the record, I don't believe what you're about to hear. I'm completely making these up. Some of these I could easily write as fan fiction, but without further ado, this is my list of the top 10 fake cartoon fan theories. And yes, I know that this is a remake of a video I did in the past. But yeah, some of the entries on that list were already proven wrong, even though I don't believe them, and I came up with at least one new one, and I would like to list these theories as how probable they are to be true, even though they're fake and I don't believe them at all. I'm just making this up. So without further ado, here is my top 10 list of fake cartoon theories. Okay, this first theory is essentially going to center around Johnny Test's mom, and it's kind of an expansion on the theory that she had an affair with Johnny Bravo, and that Johnny Test, her son, is also Johnny Bravo's son, and is not related to her husband. I'm going to expand on that theory and say yes, that happened. But in this fake theory, I'm just going to say she had an affair with Dexter years before her affair with Johnny Bravo, and that led to the birth of Susan and Mary Test. People love to point out the similarities between Johnny Test and Johnny Bravo. Whip crack sound effect, same name, similar hairstyle. Well, here are the similarities between Dexter and Susan and Mary. Both have orange-red hair. All three are geniuses. All three have to put up with an obnoxious brain-dead sibling. Yeah, so if people want to say that Johnny Test is the son of Johnny Bravo, I can just easily theorize that his older sisters, Susan and Mary, are actually the bastard daughters of Dexter from Dexter's Lab. And I couldn't see anything disproving this fake theory except for the fact that both Johnny Bravo and Dexter's Lab take place anywhere from the late 90s to the early 2000s, while Johnny Test takes place anywhere from the mid to late 2000s to the early 2010s. The fact that these are all kids shows, or the fact that Johnny Bravo and Dexter's Lab are owned by Cartoon Network, and I don't even know who owns the rights to Johnny Test by this point in 2021. And speaking of Dexter, he's going to be the basis of my next fake cartoon theory. And that is that Dexter will inevitably destroy Dee Dee's life. You're probably wondering where Dexter would be coming from and why he would suddenly get this desire to ruin his sister's life and essentially mess up everything for her to such an extent that she would consider marrying Mandark, assuming he doesn't accidentally end up dead in a final showdown with Dexter. Well, for one, she breaks into his laboratory at every opportunity, smashing things as she sees fit, and doesn't even feel the least bit sorry. She essentially ruined Professor Hawk's contest, making it so he changed it into a dance-off, and since he was the only one who danced, he kept his company. And Dexter lost his shot at greatness. A shot that Dee Dee stole from him in more ways than one, because if anyone watching remembered that episode, she stole the money he had for the floppy drive right out of his hand. In the episode Soul Brother, Dee Dee almost outed Dexter to their dad about his secret laboratory because he was fused onto her leg and wrecked her dance audition. Thanks to it, he ended up like this because of an accident that she caused. And in the end of the episode, The Way of the Dee Dee, when she breaks down crying and calls Dexter a mad destroyer for doing what she does on a regular basis, the show kind of established Dee Dee as a hypocrite. Now, I know the writers tried to play off Dee Dee's buffoonery as childhood innocence, but she kind of suffers from the major flaw of being 100% oblivious to everyone around her and how her actions will affect them directly or indirectly. And that's why, according to this fake cartoon theory, Dexter will eventually snap and set out to ruin any chance of Dee Dee becoming a Broadway dancer or successful in any way. And this is how he'll do it. First, Dexter will essentially goat his circus clown of a sister into revealing the secret of his lab. But he'll he'll basically set up a holographic barrier around the only way in that would actually simulate an actual wall being there. Over time, Dee Dee will essentially keep bringing it up to their parents. But as Dee Dee keeps trying to expose Dexter's lab with this new security system, i.e. the holographic barrier and or fake wall / simulated wall, or wall simulator, she will fail, and she'll keep it up every day. And yes, the parents will view it as this being in Dee Dee's imagination. But eventually, when Dee Dee's a teenager, it's gonna go from cute to annoying. And then, when she's around 18 or early 20s, they're gonna send her to a shrink. When Dee Dee fails to prove anything to the shrink, she's then going to be committed to an insane asylum. Dexter will have his revenge, he'll go on to be a successful adult, and he will eventually take Dee Dee in out of pity after she's finally released from the Laughing Academy, and they will live together as seen in the epilogue episode. The Wayside cartoon series is actually a prequel to the Wayside novels. Well, this is how the theory works. Todd basically went through everything he did in the show. And in the books it's mentioned that he gets in trouble and is sent home on the kindergarten bus a lot. He does this on purpose to avoid Mauricia. And basically escape the hell that is Wayside. He was put through a living nightmare, and actually is doing this to stay as far away from the place as humanly possible. And as for episodes like Mrs. Gorf, that could easily just be chalked up to both time travel shenanigans and character development. Perhaps driving Todd away actually caused Mauricia to realize what a little bitch she was. Harvey Beaks' black magic theory. I mean, for a character that is so, cutesy and innocent up until, for a show where he's 9 in Season 1 and 10 in the last few seasons, it's kind of weird that he was able to go from someone who was practically the same person that Dade was, to practically being the leader of all of the kids in Little Bark. He is their leader to an extent, and it's very rare that if he wanted to do something, any of them would object. Well, in the episode The Amazing Harvey, when Dade sees Harvey doing cheap tricks and doesn't tell him how it's done, he freaks out and labels Harvey an evil wizard. Maybe he was right. I mean, like I said earlier, Harvey's personality is so innocent that his idea of rebellion is not closing a gate all the way, or returning library books late. I mean, yeah, he's kind of got the personality of a beta male, just like Dade. But, in theory, if he had black magic, he could easily get even the alphas among the kids of Little Bark to practically worship him. It's one of the only ways to explain him being so popular, something that in the final episode is revealed to have potentially been a thing for half a decade. I mean, why wasn't he upstaged by Rooter or T-Bear? Or, better yet, it would be hard to believe that even with bribing Fee and Foo with food, two wild children like them would never befriend someone who's almost exactly like Dade. If this theory is right, then Dade was right when he freaked out in the episode The Amazing Harvey, as Harvey's popularity came through evil magic, and he was secretly controlling the kids of Little Bark Grove the entire time, as in evil beta male wizard. I guess in the episode Little Bark, he put the voodoo dolls on autopilot and removed the magic from the one that was supposed to be him. Mighty Magiswords Imagination Theory. Okay, according to this theory, Vamber and Prohias are actually just two kids, and Mighty Magiswords is an in-universe video game that they play, and essentially all of their adventures are just them going through their daily lives, but we're seeing their daily lives from their point of view, through the filter of their imaginations. Witchy Simone is essentially their friend and classmate at school, who also plays Mighty Magiswords. Novell is also their friend, who has a crush on Vamber, and also reads Veronica Victorious, which is an in-universe series of books that Vamber incorporates into her and her brother's imaginary adventures. Morbidia and Gateau, also known as Witchway, are essentially internet trolls who also play Mighty Magiswords and just happen to go to the same school as Vamber and Prohias. Princess Zanji is a local teenager who babysits Vamber and Prohias and just plays along with their games. Penny Plasm is actually just a creepy neighbor girl who has a crush on Prohias. And Grupp is their dog. Essentially, all of the other characters on the show, outside of Vamber and Prohias's parents, are essentially characters from the in-universe game Mighty Magiswords that Vamber and Prohias essentially project onto reality using their imaginations as a filter. Episode Sibling Sorcery could easily be just written off as Witchy Simone being jealous of her little sister who gets better grades than her, but we see it the way it is in the episode because we're seeing it from Vamber and Prohias's point of view as the events are being filtered through their imaginations. Desiree could have defeated Dan Phantom, also known as Dark Danny. Okay, this one is going to require a bit of explaining, so allow me to do that. The events of The Ultimate Enemy are set 10 years in the future, meaning that even though Danny Phantom was turned evil by fusing with Vlad Plasmius, they somehow avoided the disasteroid, either by blowing it up or for some reason Dark Danny decided to unite the ghosts into making the Earth intangible, but somehow they got around it, leaving Dan Phantom, aka Dark Danny, as the larger threat. In the episode Memory Blank, we find out that Desiree's magic gets stronger and stronger with each wish she grants. And in that episode, she was powerful enough to erase Danny's origin from the timeline. So all the people of the alternate timeline would have needed to do is just ask for stuff for at least half a decade, and then either wish that the events that turned Danny Phantom evil never happened, or just to remove him from existence. Loudhouse Asylum Theory. According to this theory, the girls are actually adult women, and Lincoln is not their brother. He's actually their therapist. In episodes where Lincoln breaks the fourth wall, that's actually him calling them all in for group therapy. Lori was married, but her husband and daughter died tragically in a car accident, which traumatized her. After the accident, she lost her grip on reality and was committed. Bobby in the show is a manifestation of her husband, and Ronnie Ann is the manifestation of her daughter. Now, when it comes to the spin-off, the Casa Grandes is just all in Lori's head, as she was unable to live without her family, and the only way that she could possibly live without her daughter was to become her, essentially creating a split personality in her mind where she was this projection of everything her daughter was. Despite not being insane, Lenny is there because, well, she's mentally handicapped and was duped into the whole delusion. Lynn was an athlete, but as her career began to go down the toilet, she resorted to, both steroids, and when that nearly got her thrown off the team, i.e. got her suspended, she then resorted to cheating. When she was kicked off the team permanently, she basically lost her mind. She held up a random convenience store and was then taken down by SWAT. Viewed as insane, she was that because of the steroids she had been taking and never stopped, she was committed rather than thrown in prison. Lucy just suffers from depression. Lisa was a scientist until her experiments went into Dr. Frankenstein territory, and she was then committed as her experiments broke a whole ton of laws, and her practices were deemed unethical. But she didn't go far enough in her experiments to be viewed as anything more than criminally insane. Finally, Lana, Lola, and Lily are actually all just one woman who has multiple personality disorder. Lola ended up attacking Lana's boyfriend after she stayed there for the night and ended up switching personalities without realizing it, which led to her being committed. Clyde McBride is actually Lincoln's intern, which is why, through the show's point of view, he's Lincoln's best friend. And the parents are probably just their superiors at the mental hospital. The popular kids are either teenagers or at least 12 years old. Okay, I essentially put a stock image of Timmy next to a stock image of Chad. As the show has stated in its continuity, Timmy is 10 years old, and as you can clearly see, the top of Timmy's head, without the hair, comes up to Tad's chin. And with the hair, it only comes up to his nose. Comparing Tootie and Trixie's height, Tootie's head, minus the pigtails, basically only comes up to Trixie's chest. And with the addition of the pigtails as essentially added height, only comes up to her nose. And this theory does actually make a lot of sense when you take in the fact of continuity. Continuity says that Timmy Turner is 10 years old. And continuity also says that the popular kids are really rich. So their parents could actually afford for their offspring to be held back over and over again. I estimate anywhere from 2 to 4 years, because they could easily buy a company if they don't own one already and put their offspring in charge of it. They'd get safe jobs even if they don't ever even make it into high school. If they drop out in grade school, it might not even matter. Veronica both acts and sounds like a teenager. And she doesn't have an older sister who she's copying, so it would make more sense for her to be 13, 14 years old, given the fact that she even went so far as to develop her own cheerleader persona, even though Dimsdale Elementary doesn't really have any sports teams. Loud House is a prequel to Rick and Morty. Both Lincoln Loud and Rick Sanchez are characters who break the fourth wall, have sidekick-like friends, and have either an out-of-control or downright deranged family life. So anyways, here's how the timeline would play out. 1. The events of Loud House. 2. In his early 20s, Lincoln eventually gets fed up with dealing with the abuse his sisters give him on a daily basis and leaves. 3. Lincoln changes his name to Rick Sanchez to make sure that his sisters can never find him. 4. Alien things happen. 5. Rick/Lincoln is forced to go into space and leave his daughter Beth and unnamed wife behind on Earth. 6. He eventually returns to see that Beth is married and has 2 kids. And 7. The first episode of Rick and Morty happens. And as for Lincoln's friends, for all we know, what's left of them could have been incorporated into Squanchy and Bird Person. And if you really want to go for a stretch, maybe Stella became Unity. Trixie Tang was based off of Wendy Testaburger from South Park. Now, this theory was I got the idea for this theory from this drawing, titled Black-Haired Pinkies, that listed a bunch of similarities between the 2 characters. Long black hair, both being love interests for one of the main characters. And come on, when you look at them side by side, they almost look like alternate universe versions of the same girl. Maybe Butch Hartman saw an episode of South Park with Wendy in it and decided to base a character off of her. he did reference The Simpsons, after all, in Channel Chaser, which was originally intended to be the Fairly Odd Parents season finale, so you never know. It's possible. And there you go. The top 10 fake cartoon theories. I listed them in order of how likely they would be to be true. And if you like any of them, or all of them, please tell me in the comments section. But just for the record, I want to let you know that I pulled all of these out of my ass. I made them all up. I don't believe that any of them are true, but the thing is, I made this video to prove that you can draw parallels between anything. This is the end of the video. And if you like what you saw, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and as always, have a great day.